What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Daily Misfire Podcast edition. I don't even know which one this is at this point. I think there's been...
I think it's like...
Three or four.
Three or four
Like this one. Someone. You'll see it on the number up here. Probably up there. But this one's going to be about something that we do quite a bit, or I do quite a bit. You've started doing it.
As of recently.
But that's bracket racing. So... I know everyone hears that word a lot, and if you play, Door Slammers 2 or something like that, some games like that, you get to kind of understand a little bit about bracket racing, but I don't think a whole lot of people actually fully understand the concept in practice.
Yeah, well, and I can say for someone that didn't know about bracket racing going into it, I didn't really even know anything about it. I thought it was just the same. I thought it was just a little bit different than just, heads-up drag racing. I didn't know how you could drag race differently,
right.
But bracket racing is a whole different animal.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like you said with that, I think a lot of people think drag racing is there's the Christmas tree and you leave on green, and whoever gets to the first or gets to the quarter mile first is the winner.
Right.
Which bracket racing, that's kind of it.
Not necessarily,
not necessarily true.
You don't have to have the fastest car to win.
Right. Bracket racing was created to allow anyone who's anyone to run anything that they have and be competitive and potentially beat someone. So that means I can run my diesel Blazer that runs 24 seconds in the quarter mile against a blown dragster theoretically who runs 5 seconds in the quarter mile, and we would be able to race each other. So
right.
Do you want to start the breakdown, or you want me to start the breakdown?
I can start it out.
All right.
So basically you pull up to the line just how you would any regular drag racing if you've gone to the strip and done, all that. You back in the water, do your burnout and all that. But beforehand, you'll dial in a time.
Right.
That is what you think the car will run most consistently the rest of the day.
Right.
Because normally you'll get maybe 2 practice runs.
Right. Depending on how impacted the track is and how many cars are there, a lot of tracks will allow 2 or 3 practice runs beforehand. That way everyone can kind of understand what their car is going to do. And based off of those 2 or 3 runs, you can see what your car is going to be doing that night. So, like for example, for my car, I think the last weekend I ran like a 1360 something, 1370 something, like a 1380 something, or around there. So you dial in, say, a 1370 or something like that, because your car may run faster, but it may run slower, and you want to be able to run your number as close as possible, because the idea of bracket racing is if he runs a 14 something, let's say, and he runs like a 1425 and I run a 1295, the tree is going to be staggered. So he's going to leave first. So like you said, you do your burnout and everything on the first pass. You do your burnout and everything. Everyone, you roll up together. If you're nice to each other, you get a courtesy stage, which that means the 2 top bulbs are going to light, and then you're going to light the 2 bottom bulbs on the top. And then once those 2 are lit, you're staged. And what those 2 pairs of lights signify are 2 lasers. And when you roll up so far, your tire starts rolling into the lasers. So the first lights on the top are the first set. And then the second laser is the second set of lights. And then that means your tire's set around the middle of between the 2. And those lasers are set about 6 to 7 inches apart normally. So that way everyone kind of has a general understanding, no matter what track you go to, where your tire is going to be in it. And then if let's say he's running a 1425, his light's going to start dropping. So depending on what tree you're running, if it's a amateur tree, it's going to be a 5/10 tree, so it's going to light each individual bulb like that, and then it'll be green. So his will start going first, and then mine will come second because I'm running faster than him. So theoretically, if we both leave at the exact same time on the tree, and if we run the exact same number that we said we were going to run, we should get to the finish line at the exact same time, because they staggered the tree such to wherever we're at, as far as how fast our cars go, we should be able to, it doesn't matter because we'll get there at the exact same time.
Right.
So, And there's a lot of trickery that you can do with that. I don't know how much we want to get into that, or if we want to do an example of a video.
Yeah, I mean, we could drop in a clip or something like that of, I mean, we're going racing tomorrow.
So we'll jump into the future right now.
Yeah.
And tell you and let you see
Kind of physically what's
going on, because I can talk about as much as I want, but you guys won't probably understand unless you actually see it and go, oh, because I know that's pretty much what I think literally everyone that we've talked to or met that hasn't bracket raced before, and then they bracket race and they go, I understand now. I get it.
Because it's not about who's faster, it's about consistency.
Right.
So
we're going to drop that clip right now. Do you want to add commentary over it? We'll add commentary to it. Yeah.
We can do that.
We'll add commentary. So.
Bam.
So that's probably what bracket racing's most like. Probably makes the most sense for everyone.
Yeah.
Now we're going to get into some of the nuances of it. So like we said, I'm going to let's say your dial in, which is what you think you're going to run, is a 1350. If I run a 1349.999, I lose. No matter what, I lose because I ran faster than what I said I was. And that is called a
breakout.
Right. So breaking out means you run faster than the number that you say you're going to run, and that is unfair for the person you're racing. Counter that, the other way you can lose is by immediately.
Yeah, just red lighting the tree.
Red lighting, yeah. So that means you leave before it actually turns green, which that's kind of a weird thing anyway, because theoretically you're leaving before the light even comes on.
Yeah.
Just because of reaction times and stuff, but we won't even get. You want to even roll into reaction times or?
Just briefly. Okay. It's basically, so when I first started doing the bracket racing stuff and just drag racing in general, a lot of people don't realize when you hit that second bulb on the tree and you're ready to go and you bring up the RPM and you're about to take off, a lot of people don't realize that you need to leave like a little bit before the light turns green to actually get like that closest reaction time, because you're also going to be factoring in the amount of time that it takes for your front wheel to go past that second laser. So that time doesn't start until your wheel goes past that, essentially, right, because that's when you've technically left the starting line. So on my first passes, I was cutting really bad lights just because I wasn't used to having to,
launch the car,
but also that precisely so that it's, you're making it so that the time is catching, or the clock is catching it right as your tire is going over the mark.
Right.
It's not, as soon as you see the green light or it's, anything like that.
It's going to be a really slow reaction time if you wait for green.
Yeah, if you wait for green, you're not going to win.
No.
But it just all comes with practice, and he's been doing a lot longer than I have, so he's a lot better at it. But
yeah, I think the best light that I've had so far was in 1,000th of a second reaction time, which is almost perfect. I know, because technically so how they show reaction times no matter what is it's going to be by a point, whatever. So as soon as the light turns green, they start a clock on when your tire leaves the laser. So then if you leave at 0.25, that's 0.25 of a second
Right.
that you were off of perfect.
Which was about my best. That was about my best reaction time from the last time we went racing. Was about a 0.25.
Right. Which, that's not a bad one, especially for when you're first starting. But typically when you're bracket racing, you want to be under 0.1. So if you want to be an O something, the really good bracket racers and drag racers in general, they can get 00 numbers, which I think I've gotten 00s, I think 4 or 5 times now at this point.
Yeah.
And it's not luck, but it's leaving where you think you should leave, and you're really trying to push that envelope of being red, because if you flip that switch a little bit, or you leave just literally like that amount of time difference, it's red light. Because it's crazy how much that affects you. And the more you start bracket racing, the more that even gets the level of people and running those lights are even that much more consistent as far as that goes.
Well, and you have to be very well versed in knowing how your car is going to react, especially under load when you're launching it. Because, like for me, I raced my BMW, and I mean, you can race around on the street all you want, but once you're on the strip and you're lined up with someone else and you see the tree and everything, the reaction time is such a small amount of time. It's nothing like you've probably had to try to get close to. Especially even if you've had your car for however long and you take it out there. Oh, I think you could say, oh, I know my car pretty well. Whereas someone like him basically has a purpose-built bracket car that he knows really well. Has been racing for years. He knows it better than
a lot of people.
A lot of people would know their own car. So that does play a big factor into it. Isn't just in terms of the skill gap of knowing.
Well, and you can guess, like you said, you can guess what your car is going to do, but until you actually start doing it and get consistent at it, there's really no way of knowing. And there's really no way of telling someone else when to leave or how to leave. Based off of, like, what you do. Like, there's always the great, like for me, I always try to leave, like, around the middle of when the third bulb comes on. So, like, you can see the bulb, like, light, and it's like, that's when I leave. And then right around then, and as soon as I swap pedals and I can feel my car physically launching, I physically see a green light like after I leave. It almost feels like. And when you feel that, that's when you know you have a good light. Because I still cut really bad lights sometimes too, like 2s and 3s sometimes, just because you get caught sleeping a little bit sometimes. And
it happens quick.
And
you wouldn't think so from coming from someone who hadn't done it a lot and going to drag racing. You don't think, especially with an amateur tree. I mean, you think you have all the time in the world. You have your pre-stage, and then you stage, and then you go 1, 2, 3, go. You think you have a bunch of time, but
you really don't.
Once you get to that second stage, if the car next to you is already completely staged, you have a very short amount of time before you have to be back on the brake, or keeping on the brake and then bringing up the throttle to like load up the car and like get it to the right RPM that you want. Because if you go too high, you're going to just spin, or if you go too low, you're just going to bog. So being able to bring it right up to where you want,
that optimal RPM,
quickly and efficiently every time, is pretty hard. And a lot of people don't think about that.
No. Launching is probably one of the trickiest parts of it. And then once you start understanding what the car is going to do as far as that goes, and once you start learning, like if your car is going to run like let's say 1365, which is kind of what my car runs. Around then you can start dialing in certain numbers based off of who you're racing. And I haven't gotten to this point yet. I know how to theoretically get to this point just from talking with people and understanding how to do it and everything, and to be able to modify it as track conditions allow you as well. That's also a big deal because for track conditions wise, if it's a really hot day, the air is gonna be really bad. But the track's going to be really sticky because it's hot, so the tire's going to be a lot hotter. The track's going to be a lot stickier. So theoretically, the tires and everything, you'll have more traction, but the air is going to be super hot and it'll be super thin. So that means your engine won't be able to make as much power. Whereas if you're on a day where it's 62 degrees and sunny or whatever, let's say, or if it's at night, it's 55 degrees at night or 40. the track's going to be physically cold, so there's going to be less traction, but that air is super thick, so that allows your engine to really want to make a lot of power, because cold air equals a lot of power, which is why you put nitrous to things, because nitrous actually cools down partially a little bit. It cools down, but it also gives you more air. So that's kind of the understanding for that. So you kind of have to understand what the car is going to do in certain situations, and that's back to knowing your car.
Well, and a great example of the traction thing too. Last time when we went with my car specifically, earlier in the day when it was still a little bit sunny, the track had a little bit more grip and it was gripping up a lot easier. So his car compared to mine, I make more power on the top end because it's twin turbo and all that. So as the night went on, I was not hooking as well because the track got super cold. So I was just blowing through first gear completely, but my trap speed was going up every time I do a run. So my first run, I'm pretty sure I trapped at like 96 miles an hour or something like that. And by the end of the night, it was almost 100. So you could, just from that, you can, it's there on the timesheets. It's proof that, the air is getting colder, so your trap speed is faster. But because of those conditions, you're not going to run a faster time necessarily, just because, your car's making more power.
Right.
Especially on the drag strip.
Right. Well, and for, like you just said, likewise for me, and you were on street tires, I was on cheater slicks, so that's also a big difference. Tires, and we can go so far into this, but I don't want to go that far into it, but
it's going to be more of an introduction to
this will be an introduction racing. But like for me, my car was actually launching better as the night got on because my car was making more power, but because my tires were better than his tires, my car was actually able to handle it, and I don't make as much power probably, or very similar, but
very similar, just in different
ways.
Yeah.
Because mine makes a lot more in the middle band, so like at around half track is about where my car runs out as far as power wise, and then it's just kind of, I think his trap speed at 8th mile I think is like almost 90. It's like 92, 93, and then at the quarter mile I'm running like 100. So that last 600 feet I'm really not doing a whole lot. It's just running out the back end.
Whereas I want to say my 8th mile ET was like 75 or 78 or something like that. So it's like a pretty big difference, and that's because of the cheater slicks. Right, because of the cheater slicks,
my car was able to hook. It was able to launch better. It was able to get past there a lot quicker. And then that comes into just knowing your car. What I was going to get to before was at the top end of the track, you can see what the other person's doing, and you can theoretically there's a lot of wiggle room there sometimes, because you can dial, for example, if my car is running at 1380, I might dial at 1390 or 14.0 even. That's a lot, but 14.0 is a lot for that. But you do that because you want to give yourself room at the top end, because you're going to be going faster than 14.0. If you're running 1380s all night, 14.0 is kind of baloney as far as that goes.
Right.
So, but you do that because you want to be able to get past the person, and then you can drive back into them. So you can get off the throttle, and you can start playing. They call it playing games with people, and that's using your brakes at the top end and trying to because at that point, if you catch them, there's no way they're passing you back, unless they're a big block or nitrous or something weird. They're probably not going to pass you.
Yeah.
And I've done that some. One of the biggest examples, and especially it happens when someone cuts a really bad light sometimes, or they spin the tires really bad. You can tell based off of that, like where you're at and where they're at, and then you can let off the throttle and you can do try to close it down a little bit, because you want to try to win by the least is the key to bracket racing. You want to win literally by that much, like every single time. If you can win by that much every single time, you're really good.
Right.
Because that means you know your car, you know what you're doing, you know what your reaction time, you know how to handle everything. That's
right.
I think that's probably pretty much my summary for it.
Yeah. It's a lot harder than people think.
Yeah, drag racing
harder. In general.
I think a lot of people get wrapped up in we were just going in a straight line.
Yeah, it's just like how people say that NASCAR, oh, they're just turning left.
Right. There's a lot more to it than...
There's a little bit more to it.
Right. Well, there's a lot more to going fast, too. Just going fast is a straight line. There's a lot that goes into it.
Right.
Especially...
especially as far as just setting up your car to do that well. Because, I mean, a lot of just common road cars are set up to do everything, but they're not purpose-built just to go straight, which, may not sound like a lot or a big thing, but, there's a lot of stuff that goes into making a car able to just launch and actually grip up and go straight really fast. A lot more than people would think about in terms of suspension setups and gearing and tires.
Shocks, like you said. Launching RPMs, I mean, your converters, I mean, there's so much that goes into all of it that you're just like...
And that can change by the track, too, especially if you're going, like, all over wherever.
Yeah.
And you're dealing with different altitudes and stuff like that. And then it depends on if you're running forced induction or not.
Right.
Then that starts to play a hand in, what time you'll run, and maybe it'll be running slower if you're a higher altitude, and you won't be too sure on what time you want to dial and stuff like that. So
it's just knowing what your car is going to do and kind of understanding what does what. Definitely. And having that general understanding of what this does to create this, or what happens when you do this is what happens. Or like for me, for example, I took my sway bar off my car, so that theoretically will help the front end get a little bit looser, so that way it has better weight transfer, because then the front end kind of has more ability to move, whereas with the sway bar, it's really locked up and it has nowhere to go. Now it has the ability to, and you can feel the difference physically in the car. And I picked up, I probably picked up 500ths of a second, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot, because that's in the 60 foot anyway. Yeah. I went from like a 205 60 foot to 198s, 197s, which that doesn't sound like a lot, but you can physically feel that in the car. Like, it's kind of funny how you can feel 800ths of a second in the car.
Yeah.
Like, you can just tell that kind of stuff, but... Well, I don't want to get too much further into it. I think we covered quite a bit.
Right. And we'll have some clips and stuff of, from when we go tomorrow, kind of better... Understanding. Better showing what we've talked about here.
Right.
Hopefully we've, sprinkled those in by now, but...
Hopefully future us doesn't suck when we're filming and actually gives you good content.
We don't get too focused on just racing.
Yeah. Future me and you don't get wrapped up in things sometimes.
Yeah.
Or we forget and we go...
Yeah.
And then this will sit on the shelf for like 2 weeks and I have to go film something else. But that's about, I think, where we're at for today. So...
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for watching the Daily Misfire Podcast, whatever episode this is. 4? We'll say 4. We'll say 4.
It could be less or more.
Or more. We'll make this 4. No matter what, we'll make this 4.
There might be a couple 4s in there.
Yeah, there might be a couple 4s. But be sure to like and subscribe. Check up on Instagram because we'll be posting quite a bit. And we'll have an update next week for you guys. That's going to have some cool stuff. And hopefully, if we actually pull it off what we're going to be talking about, we're going to have some sick stuff. So... stay tuned. Till then, peace.